Hello and welcome. My name is Jill Eisenberg and I am the Director of Curriculum and Literacy Strategy at LiLo Books. We are thrilled for you to join us today to discuss LiLo Books' newest series, Más Piñata, the Leveled Readers, and using dual language leveled readers in your classroom. A bit of logistics, please feel free to ask a question or add a comment in our Q&A box or in the chat box. I'll be checking that throughout. We will share PD certification info at the end of this session if there is something you're interested in. This is being recorded and will be available on our website and blog to download, watch, and share, and we'll follow up with an email afterwards. Before we go further, please let us know if you did not see the slide change. You should see the pictures of Barbara and me. Great. Quick introduction on who is speaking today. I am joined by one of the authors and co-founders of the Más Piñata series, Dr. Barbara Flores. Dr. Flores is a pioneer Latina scholar, activist, and leader, teacher educator, children's literature writer, and international expert in the areas of biliteracy development, bilingual education, and critical pedagogy. She's been a professor for the last 35 years and currently has an academic appointment at California State University, San Bernardino. Dr. Flores holds and has held a number of leadership positions. She has been on San Bernardino City School Board since 2008. Currently, she serves as president of the California Latino School Boards Association. She's also currently on the executive board of the California Association for Bilingual Education and vice chair of the National Latino Education Research and Policy Project. Barbara, you have an impressive background, which I know I haven't done justice here, but anything you would like to further share?
I'd just like to share that I'm also a mom and a grandma.
Fabulous. I love that. And I myself am the Director of Curriculum and Literacy Strategy at LiLo Books. I'm on my 5th year with this amazing organization and will be our host, co-presenter, and moderator today. Let's dive in. First, I want to offer a poll. The poll I want to share with everybody is, how do you feel about using dual language books in your classroom? Excited, confident, nervous, you're struggling, unsure, other. If it's other, please add it into our chat box so we can take a look. Seems like there's a lot of excitement. That's tremendous. We've got people who are excited and confident. All right, we've got a lot of people here who are very excited and confident, which we're so thrilled to see. Wonderful. Thank you. Hope you'll get even more excited. All right. When we decide to do a webinar on our new Más Piñata series and have a conversation about dual language classrooms, I was immediately reminded of one of my favorite poems in the poetry anthology, Amazing Faces. This is a poem called Me Times Two by Jane Medina. I'm going to read the English. If Barbara, if you can see the slide clearly, do the Spanish, I'd love to have you share that. So Me Times Two. I read times two, I write times two, I think, I dream, I cry times two. I laugh times two, I'm right times two, I sing, I ask, I try times two. I do twice as much as most people do, because most speak one, but I speak two.
Yo leo por dos, escribo por dos, pienso y sueño y lloro por dos. Yo no por dos, grito por dos, canto, pregunto, intento por dos. Hago mucho más que hacen todos ellos porque yo hablo dos, lo doble que aquellos. Jane Medina.
Thank you. This little girl's pride in learning and thinking and breathing in 2 languages is contagious, and I think perfectly sets the tone for today's discussion and presentation. We see the opportunity to bring Más Piñata and other stories in Spanish as critical to having all children see their dual language skills as an asset as she does. An overview for our discussion and presentation today, we're going to learn about LiLo and Más Piñata, explore the qualities that go into the making of our dual language level readers, examine ways our educators can infuse culturally relevant materials into their classrooms, and then discover the content in Bebop Book's approach to dual language programs. LiLo Books is over 25 years old. We are nearing our 30th birthday. LiLo was founded in 1991 by Chinese Americans Tom Lo and Philip Lee. In 1997, Tom's sons Craig and Jason Lo joined the company to expand its offerings and reach. The company is 100% minority owned. As the company is family owned and independent, LiLo makes its own decisions and publishes what it wants. We take risks and turn them into award-winning, beloved classroom classics. We pride ourselves on our diverse staff, leadership, editorial team, and authors and illustrators. Many of our staff are parents or have teaching experience as well and have a personal stakes in the books we offer all our children. We are inspired and motivated to offer young people the experience of discovering their story in a book, as well as learning about someone different than their experience. We are the largest multicultural and diverse children's book publisher in the country. Our motto is about everyone, for everyone, and we have expanded our definition of diversity over the years. Bottom line, wherever there's a gap in the classroom library, we want to be there to help fill it. LiLo has several different imprints or product lines. Our main umbrella imprint is LiLo Books, but our line Bebop Books publishes books for beginning level readers in English and Spanish. These titles range from pre-kindergarten to the end of second grade, levels A through J. It is here that we are proud to announce the release of the hundreds of beloved stories from the original Piñata collection, relaunching Más Piñata series. Más Piñata is the original Spanish literacy series in the U.S. It was the first authentic early literacy program for Spanish-speaking students in the U.S. and is now available again. Barbara, it is here I want to ask you, why did the Más Piñata level readers need to exist? What gap did you hope they would fill when you originally wrote the books?
We saw a gap when, the Australians and the New Zealanders brought level readers into the United States in the 80s and the 90s. And their attempts to provide some Spanish titles or mainly translated, and we saw that they were not adequate. And we didn't want to, keep translating. We would always have to adjust. So I had been working with Elena Castro and Eddie Hernandez in Calexico for about 8 years, and in staff development. And I would go in the classrooms, demonstrate, and we were, producing our own little books in Spanish and having the kids illustrate them and so forth. And so there was a book publisher that approached me, and I said, we can do our own books, and it would be authentic and have original Spanish, and they'll be culturally relevant and so forth. So I wrote up the proposal for the book series, and so that was history. Now it's history, and 200 titles later, 220 titles later, we have Más Piñata.
Thank you. So what is inside? What will you find? These stories are child-centered, they're culturally relevant and responsive. They're accurate with in-depth research in terms of the science and math content and authentic to the cultural details. It is a balanced collection. You'll find a range of realistic fiction stories about everyday life of children, nonfiction heavy on science and math content, and then a mix of traditional tales as well as songs, poems, and rhymes familiar to children. These stories offer a chance to have local to global connections with real-world skill applications. We hope to offer a lot of family engagement by portraying a variety of family configurations as well as opportunities for learning at home, and then additional opportunities for cross-curricular learning with social studies, science, and math. What is new? So you think you already have Piñata. You bought the originals in the 1990s. What is new with Más Piñata? They are now available in English for the first time. The original Celebration Press series was only available in Spanish. We've got fresh, updated designs, text layout, and art. The trim size is larger, cover art and interiors have been fully redesigned, as well as illustrations and photographs have been updated where needed for relevancy to kids' lives and experiences today. The text has been updated to align with state and national ELA and math standards, and science texts are updated to align with the next generation science standards. We increased the rigor to meet current reading expectations at even the youngest levels. For example, where some books were single word or nouns per page in the earliest levels, we made sure to include complete sentences to better align with the reading expectations for those grades. Storylines and content now provide for meaningful text-to-self, text-to-text, and text-to-world connections for discussion and written response in English and Spanish. Lesson plans, which are currently in development, are aligned to current educational standards. And we've updated and revised the guided reading levels for English and Spanish to reflect these changes. Each book is also independently leveled in the Spanish and in the English, so no child or family is left out of the conversation and content learning at the level rate for them. Más Piñata has been submitted to Fountains and Pinnell for leveling and is currently being field tested for levels for reading recovery, which they did not have before. The books are leveled A to Z, and as I mentioned in the previous slide, these stories overall are exploring the experiences of children in America today, and the Grupo Educatores team wrote both the Spanish adapted and the English text, adapting the Spanish to English, making sure that Spanish stays at the forefront and is not an afterthought at all. The Más Piñata series does consist of 184 books originally written in Spanish with 184 English companion titles, which is a total of 368 books, or almost 400. Barbara, Más Piñata, it's not a program, not methods, not a mandated curriculum. Do you have to do these books in a sequence? What is it? What are these books?
The books are so dynamic, and they're provided diversity for the children. Like you said earlier, we have traditional tales, everyday experiences, everyday life, culture that the children experience. We have math and science content, and then we included the fourth category of songs, poems, and rhymes that are, culturally relevant and also bridge to the English culture as well. And so they provide a diversity. They're leveled, and in terms of promoting, developmental reading for our kids, they just provide a lot of an array. We have a variety of photographs, caricatures, authentic, realistic illustrations. Earlier, when you asked me how we started, the artists, Michael Ramirez and Mary Ramirez Green, we work really closely with them. We talk about what we want to depict. It's easy to write the text, but it's more difficult to capture the illustration, the photography. And so, we're so excited because teachers can use them in a variety of ways. You can use them for read aloud, buddy reading, for guided reading, for independent reading. It's just a beautiful array of possibilities for teachers.
Excellent.
And children and families.
That's beautiful. So that actually leads us into the Grupo Educatores team. This team is a collective of 3 authors, Dr. Barbara Flores, Elena Castro, and Eddie Hernandez, and 2 artists, Michael Ramirez and Mary Ramirez Green. In the early 1990s, they decided to pool their talents and visions and embark on creating early Spanish books to promote literacy and biliteracy development. These creators for the Más Piñata books are native Spanish speakers and longtime educators and school leaders. They've got decades of teaching and education leadership experience between them, teaching in bilingual, dual language ESL programs and settings. As a team and collective, they have a very close author and illustrator collaboration, which is very unique in the children's literature space. Barbara, how did you come to work with Elena, Eddie, Michael, and Mary? What is special about this collective, this team?
Well, the school board in Calexico asked me to come and work at one of their schools, those schools in Calexico. And I said I would not do it unless I was given a 3-year contract, and I could work in the classroom with real teachers and real kids. And so they went for it, and we started working together. And the goal was to develop, strategies for, successful strategies for biliteracy development. And so Elena was first grade teacher, Eddie was kindergarten teacher, and we worked really closely, not just for the first 3 years, but we continued for 8 years, because then the board wanted all the grades to be, dual language as well. So it was so exciting. And then the opportunity to begin to develop books presented itself. So I asked Elena and Eddie, I had worked with other teachers, but I knew them, closely. We became good friends as well as colleagues. And then Elena says, well, I have a brother who is an artist, and it was Michael. And so I said, okay, let's see what he can do. And his portfolio was just beautiful. And so we went ahead, and then he picked his other sister, which is also Elena's sister, Mary Ramirez Green. And so we formed a new family, and the rest is history. And we work very closely together and, support each other for many years. So it's been about, since about 1985, we've been together.
Wow. I want to kind of lead and have a step back to the experience that you guys had, in your district, and take a moment to look at the demographics of our schools today. Nearly 52% of students enrolled in public schools in 2016 and 2017 identify as people of color. By 2025, 1 out of 4 students are predicted to be English language learners. In 2016, 22% of children in the United States spoke a language other than English at home. That other language was most likely to be Spanish, and most commonly is Spanish. And when you zero in on states specifically, looking at, let's say, California and New Jersey, that number jumps to 44% and 30% of children, regardless public school, private, charter, district, spoke a language other than English at home. And 64% of all 4th graders were reading below grade level, and 66% of all 8th graders were reading below grade level. Barbara, with so many of our students being L's, why do we not see as many resources for L's, bilingual, ESL, and dual language programs?
I think that there were, like in California, we were moving along pretty well until Proposition 227 was passed, which forbidded, districts without a lot of regulations to go into, biliteracy development and so forth. And then also for our ELs, there's a deficit perspective that people have had that, that they don't know English. But in fact, the kids do have a language, and that language, their first language, whether it's Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Mandarin, is an asset. It's not a deficit. And so, the materials that we are producing now, especially from LiLo, are actually a bridge and very helpful for teachers to organize success, to organize language and literacy and biliteracy success. And the fact that we, through LiLo, you have not just the Bebop readers, and now Más Piñata, both in Spanish and English, that's going to provide teachers with such a wealth and a treasure of possibilities. And I think, and the kids are going to love them, the families are going to love them, because, when a child sees herself or himself or their family, they exist, they're valued. And when they don't, they don't feel valued. And so that, LiLo books, Más Piñata, Bebop books are just a treasure for our nation and our kids.
Oh, thank you. I mean, speaking of that, authenticity is paramount to our mission. As we mentioned earlier, the series was originally written in Spanish by native Spanish speakers and Spanish educators. And then the Grupos Educatores team adapted the stories into English to make the syntax, vocabulary, idioms, and proverbs as authentic as the story and illustrations. Barbara, why was it important or necessary to create these books in Spanish originally? What did you hope to achieve when you set out to create these books with your team?
When children experience their authentic language, along with, authentic, realistic depictions of who they look like and who they are, and see themselves, that promotes, how would you say, a feeling of belonging. And then as you use the natural language, that's the key, the natural language that they hear and use on an everyday basis, and then include everyday cultural, experiences, it supports and facilitates, the development of becoming proficient. You stated that we had 64 and 66% respectively of kids that are reading below fourth grade level. I'm a Bogotskian as well. And, we have to organize teaching and learning to the potential. And actually, we've had materials that organize failure, and teachers don't know that. And so these books, along with, increasing the text complexity, upping the value and the quality of books, and using the original Spanish, natural, authentic Spanish that they hear every day, supports them, and they see it in written language.
Yeah, I have to say, I was really struck with by having them in Spanish first versus like, let's write the books in English and then bring them into Spanish, having it, start with Spanish, keeping it really at the forefront, not this afterthought. That has been something that's really unique, seeing it in these level readers.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. I really also want to highlight the diversity of the Latina experience here. The Más Piñata books focus on promoting awareness for children of all backgrounds. The stories are set in America. They show kids being kids. These characters and children capture the diverse American experience of childhood today, while also shining light on the diverse experience of growing up Latina in the U.S. Was that something that was intentional to the Grupos Educatores team?
Oh, yes, it was definitely. It goes back again to, valuing their identity, valuing their culture. Prior to this, we had books that, depicted our kids in very stereotypic ways. They didn't look like them, and it was, very negative stereotypes. And if you notice, in La Playa, the little girl that's in the center there at the beach, you see her little body. That's the little girl's body. They have a tummy. Their legs are shaped that way. Their arms, they're looking at everybody, goes to the beach. Well, here in California, we go to the beach. And it depicts that everyday experience that kids experience. You look at the little boy in bicicleta. Little boys ride bikes. Little girls do too on the sidewalk. And so, the kids can identify with that. And again, that's the pragmatics. That's the cultural background that supports the kids. The little girl that's dancing, Yo Bailo, I Dance. Also, the, kids are in a family, and you see, their families. Family means a lot to everybody, to all cultures.
Yeah, and I think like it's really special seeing, making sure that we've got representation of children's experiences in rural and urban and suburban settings, as well as, stories that are very culturally specific, as well as a balance of stories that are very universal and that kids from all communities across the country can relate to in some way of a childhood experience.
Exactly.
To continue to build on that, in addition to our authors, our illustrators are creating stories with accurate context and content, pulling it from their own background and culture to depict in these stories. Take, for example, the tamales. The story walks readers through the steps of making a tamale with one's grandmother or abuela. But if you also notice that the pottery and the textiles and the setting of the story that are depicted here really capture the nuance and accuracy of a child in this family, really being able to allow children who either relate to this family and culture particularly, or as an opportunity to learn about another family and culture, showing the homes of families who are making these tamales. Is that something that you found that your illustrators and in terms of photographs wanted to make sure that that was sensitive as well as with the text?
Well, oh yes, that's what we decided as a group, that the illustrations would be authentic and realistic, that we would have some caricatures, you know, as you saw with the monsters earlier. However, we wanted to depict through the illustrations realistic illustrations that showed exactly, you know, our experience in terms of, and his experience of making tamales. And you see the grandma, you know, our grandmas make tamales, our great grandmas make tamales, we all make tamales. And so they're very, very important around holidays and special occasions. So that's an experience. And now throughout the nation, throughout the United States, a lot of people eat tamales. So now they get to see how you do it.
Yeah,
how you make them.
It's true. And I think, you know, really building on those really real world applications and connections, you know, for example, this other story, In My Body, it walks children through a boy counting his body parts and naming his body parts, and him playing at the playground and which body parts you use to play. So young children can really think about how we use our bodies to play, how we play, and even a book at such an early level really does lend itself for multiple readings and rereadings, and being able to tie in not just the ELA skills and reading comprehension, but also, you know, opportunities for kids to think about the science content and, you know, maybe bring in some physical education, and really giving it that text to self and text to world connections. Barbara, looking at the story topics across levels, across the series, many of these books aren't grand topics. You know, they seem to be everyday experiences, cooking with abuela, going to the supermarket with dad. Was that something your team was intentional about, not only being linguistically relevant, but culturally relevant as well?
Yes, we intentionally did that because we wanted kids to relate to their lives. And when one sees not only sees oneself in a book, but also sees experiences that are everyday culture, it's so important to value children's everyday culture, and they can identify with it. And it also values their identity. I wanted to say something about this particular book, My Body, Mi Cuerpo. If everybody notices, the text says, Mi cuerpo tiene dos brazos, my body has two arms. Mi cuerpo tiene dos manos, my body has two hands. We know from our research that our children, when they're learning to read, expect the illustration or photo to match the text. And so that was intentional. I'm an applied sociolinguist, and Goodman's theory of social psycholinguistics of the reading process states that, you know, we have to have the universal strategies of prediction, confirming, self-correction are very key in becoming a proficient reader. So our level predictable books that we have do that. They embed intentionally, the ability for kids to predict. The text is the pattern. Mi cuerpo tiene dos brazos. And the only segment, grammatical segment that changes is the nouns, you know, arms, brazos, manos, hands. And so the illustration photograph provides the clue for the kids to predict. And also, because it is a pattern, mi cuerpo tiene dos, right? Our brain seeks, we know that from our research, that the brain seeks patterns. So all of this is providing, support for kids to learn how to predict. the syntax, the meaning, the illustrations. And from a Rogotskian perspective, we are providing, structures for them to be successful. And that's what predictable books do. They organize success to move kids into proficient reading. Are you there?
Yep, I'm right here. Yep, no, that was perfect. I had nothing to add to that. I think to build into more of how these books are being used in the classroom, we want to ensure that these content-rich Spanish texts can be used across the literacy block in guided reading, read aloud, shared reading, independent reading. We can pair content-aligned and content-rich guide reading texts at different levels to align and support the rest of your literacy block, so students get to learn and practice skills while exploring content. For example, Laughing Tomatoes and Other Spring Poems, which is a collection of poems from Francisco Alarcón and part of a poetry collection, The Cycles of the Seasons, that celebrates his childhood and the nature around him. This text could be used as a read aloud to learn about the use of sensory details in writing, or how to figure out the genre, or to use in a content unit on the seasons and change. Then for student practice, we can pair Laughing Tomatoes with an on grade level text, The Seasons, which is a really great Más Piñata story showing children how they play each season and which season they like best and how their play changes as the seasons change, which could be used in a small group instruction to practice either retell or compare the types of books, or learn about that content of how can we learn about the seasons and how we change what we do and what we wear with the seasons. And then thinking about, as we are using these books and how they fit into your literacy block, how you can also make sure that we're creating a space for these books to go into the homes of the parents that you're working with, as well as how we can bring homes and our parents into the school and classroom. The Grupos Educatores team breaks down really complex topics for readers of all ages and with varying degrees of background knowledge. They've been strategic in building a balanced collection to meet the needs of educators. We offer these Spanish stories that explore general diversity and celebrates the universal human experience, but we also seek to provide educators with stories where a child's race, family structure, gender identity, or disability is an integral part of the story, but not the main part or sole reason for the story. So as you're building your balanced collections for guided reading or for classroom libraries, thinking about how are you featuring books that show our similarities and differences, while also finding stories that are universal everyday topics and just so happen to have protagonists with diverse backgrounds. And then also making sure that part of the collection around these books that we provide our children do offer opportunities to explore and celebrate specific heritages, cultures, and identities. The Más Piñata books include a variety of genre and formats that Barbara's already touched on across the reading levels, including everyday life, nonfiction, traditional tales, poems, songs, and rhymes. Barbara, can you tell us how your team organized the books or selected these topics and content areas?
Well, we know children, and we were very engaged with the children, and we're, as teachers, I'm a teacher of teachers, and being in the classroom with the kids and just observing and engaging with them, and just being tuned in with the children and what their interests are, what grabbed them, and all of that. And, we saw that, they would talk about their everyday experiences in their journals, in their daily interactive dialogue journals. They were fascinated by nature, and they loved to listen to, stories. So, it was easy to then, we decided we're going to do everyday life, everyday experience. We'll do, we called it science and math, right? But now we call it nonfiction. We wanted to adapt traditional tales so we could make them more culturally relevant, but also add to the array, say, this is a different version of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, or because we have an adaptive version for that one. And then, kids love poems, they love songs, they love rhymes. and we wanted to include those as well. And so, you know, as authors, we just very creative, all of us, very, very creative. And then just working with the artist, with Michael. Michael, we want you to go and study a real spider, you know, and you illustrate the real spider in the way a child would look at that spider. So we're always tuned in to a child's perspective. So that's how we did it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this is one of the most popular books with children. I wonder why, with featuring all different types of monsters. You know, Barbara, using this as an example, you know, I wanted you to see if you could talk about, you know, what knowledge about children's growth and development stages went into the text and illustrations here. I know you've also talked about an important reading strategy of prediction and how Más Piñata books can be used for those types of reading comprehension skills.
Right. Well, my research and pedagogical background is, there's many, but one of them is, you know, sharing and teaching teachers about proficient reading. And teachers would always ask, well, what do I need to know and what do I need to use in order to, you know, facilitate that development so that my kids become proficient? Because all teachers want their kids to become proficient. And so, you know, we started with guided reading and in the 90s, and we saw that remember, I'm in the classroom with real teachers, real kids. I have been throughout my career, 35 career, very different type of professor, because I want to be there with them and so forth. So what I observed was that, you know, about 2/3 of the kids could engage in guided reading, but there was a third that weren't. So I developed mini shared reading, which is in between big book shared reading and guided reading. And it's for the kids that don't know all their letters and their sounds or sight words. And so in a 20 to 30 minute, very structured protocol, which I have outlined, is very, very successful. We have studies where, for example, kids in 5 weeks moved 5 to 10 levels. And so we need to share that knowledge. And getting back to developing not just topics or choosing topics like I'm not afraid. We want to increase the complexity of the syntax, so we did. And if you notice, the illustrations match the syntax. There's now, you know, 2 lines, 2 sentences, and also a very important pattern. We wanted them to teach them the colors, so only the nouns, the adjective changes, and so forth. And what we're doing is, you know, a proficient reader uses all the, linguistic systems, pragmatics, semantics, syntactic, graphophonic, sounds and letters, and orthographic, the punctuation. And all those patterns are here. So what we do is engage the kids in the act of proficient reading, even though they're not proficient. Again, it's the Gotskian. You organize the zone, and you know where the kid is developmentally, but you don't teach to the developmental level. You teach to the potential, and you have to bridge where they're at to the potential. And what predictable books do is exactly that. They're very complex, but they look simple. And as we move the kids towards that, after the 3rd reading, the kids can read this book. They've engaged in proficient reading, even though they don't know all their sounds and letters, and they don't know sight words. And then we go back into the text and make visible to them all the cueing systems, the linguistic cueing systems, the semantic. We ask questions like, does the text match the illustration? That's confirming. That's confirming strategy. Okay, find the word rojo, hug it. They have it. And what letter it begins with? What sound is that? What letter ends with rojo? What sound is that? So you're teaching, you know, you're teaching about the cueing systems. Do you notice what comes at the end of the sentence? What's that called? A period. Okay, good. What does the sentence start with? Capital, like capital Y or a yo. And we do all of that, and within 20, 30 minutes, with 5 little kids, 3 to 5 little kids, if they're level 4 and this book is level 6, the kids, every kid, I guarantee you, will be able to read that book after 20 to 30 minutes of mini shared reading. So that's how we embedded the complexity. My goal is to teach teachers how to organize success. And also, I'm a theoretician and also a researcher. I think God gave me a gift to also, you know, develop strategies and you know, pedagogy. And it's so exciting to me because I just love, I do this, and as a matter of fact, I demonstrate in classrooms with real kids, because the teachers always say, oh, you don't know my kids. I go, okay, let's do it. I don't know the kids. I show them, I demonstrate, and there's never been a time where the kids don't rise to the occasion, because I have organized success, and that's what we need to share.
So looking at a book like Meet My Family, you know, Barbara, could you walk us through the creation process and thought process on how a book such as this seeks to respect a learner's culture, language, and developmental stages, you know, how a teacher can use this information with his or her students?
Yes, this is it looks like a simple book, but it's got so much in it. You know, we break gender stereotypes. Here's the dad, you know, helping to make dinner, which dads do. Here's a mom at a computer. You know, you see the mom with the baby and a little girl and a dad. This is one, you know, family unit. There are other family units that we probably need to depict as well. But this is, you know, something that we want kids to see. Like we said, family is really important. And again, you see that prediction is embedded. Este es mi papá, you know, esta es mi mamá. And what's the only thing that changes is the noun. And the noun is then confirmed with the father, right? You see him in the photo, you see the mom in the photo, and you see a pattern. And so we're creating success through culturally relevant themes and everyday life.
And Barbara, what are the benefits of using these as dual language books, you know, using them together?
Preferably, you know, you only need to learn to read once, preferably in your first language. And using the other language, right, your second language, in this case, maybe English, you've already know the meaning. You already know the meaning because you experienced it in your first language. Seeing it in your second language, say during your EL time, you need to be able to see the words, the syntax, hear it, see the pattern. So you're able to now use what you learned, you know, in the first book, and now the second book in your second language. It'll be much more easier. And the kids need to hear and see. When you're learning a second language, you need to see and make visible the grammar, the syntax, hear the, you know, sound letter, the words, see the structure of the language. And so this provides a great bridge for our kids.
All right, I want to take this moment to look at some of our questions coming in. Some people are using the Q&A, some people are using the chat box, people are also tweeting in and sharing them. So here are a couple of valuable questions. We've got one, I think, all the way from Puerto Rico, so I really appreciate tuning in. I think you are our farthest participant. How does this book series fit in with an ESL program and the experience in Puerto Rico?
The experiences in Puerto Rico are probably very different but similar to the kids. So the kids experience, everyday life and experiences, so they would be able to relate to it, but they also would be able to learn about another culture that is Hispanic, that is Mexican as well. And the English, you could use the Spanish and then use the English version to develop their English proficiency as well. Once they are proficient, they can do proficient readers in Spanish. You can use the English version and show them, and they'll be building. Not, usually when the kids are learning English as a second language, people start with vocabulary. That is so limiting. However, the Más Piñata books in English will provide you the complexity for them to develop, their syntax, their pronunciation, and their how to write in English as well. Is that helpful? Can she write back and say
yes,
that was helpful?
I will definitely follow up with her and see if she has additional questions. But I think that's, definitely thinking about, ESL programs across the country and how they have both unique needs as well as seeing what can be used
Right.
across different resources. This is really valuable to a lot of people, so I'm really glad she asked that question. Another question
Yes.
I have is, how can I use these books with older students reading at these early levels? I have several third graders reading at level F.
Yes. It would be great for them, and we've done this before. We'll say we're going to do reading buddies, and they're going to learn how they're going to teach the kids in the lower grades how to read. So what we've done is we've used mini shared, where we take, 2 levels above, and we create success for those third graders. We'll say, well, we're going to have kids and that are at this level, but what level they are. So you're going to pick books 2 levels above to teach at the potential. And what we do is use mini shared with it. We teach the kids, the third graders, how to teach the little ones. Same thing, where they do buddy reading. It's so successful. And then we also teach them how to make, in mini shared, we teach them how to make predictable books using the same pattern, but you change, the scenario, you change the verb, you create your own, and then they draw the illustrations together, 2 times after they're with the kids. I think it's the third or the 4th time that they're with them together, and that's how you build their proficiency. And also, you also tell the kids, the third graders, you're going to learn moves, and I'm going to take you. I don't know if you remember me saying that these were first graders that moved 5 to 10 levels in 5 weeks. So it's a very strategic strategy to use.
And I think also, Barbara, I want to add in for this question that although there are some stories here that are definitely going to appeal to younger kids, we wanted to make sure that the characters, whether they're the photographs of children or illustrations of children, that they will scale up and be interesting to older students, realizing that we want to make sure that being sensitive to where students are, whatever grade level, that they don't feel that that the book they're picking up is a baby book, that this is the right book for them at the right level, and is still going to be interesting to them at that grade level.
Exactly, and they have brothers and sisters or cousins.
Yes.
And so, and these little kids, you tell them these books are going to be for the little kids, and so the way you're going to learn to read better is by reading and reading to others, and they get it, and they want to be helpful to the other little kids, and it's through buddy reading.
Yep. Please keep writing in. We will answer more questions at the end. Just quickly, we want to share that we offer in-house scripted lesson plans or highly guided. Of course, we never expect that you will use these just straight verbatim, that you'll adapt them to your reading needs as well as the classroom situation, so that educators can know how to use our books as well as weave them into their existing curriculum. These can and have been adapted into core curriculum. While we are not a curriculum developer, our expertise is in creating and publishing books. LiLo is very proud to offer these free classroom-tested lesson plans for each of our titles created by educators. You can check them out on the book page. There's no password or payment ever required. You know, if we have found best teaching strategies, we want to make sure that those are available to teachers and students who need them the most. These highly guided and supported reading lesson plans are available for levels A to J, and they are aligned to the Common Core. These lesson plans are for either the English or Spanish edition text. The features of the guided reading lesson plan include highlights of the text and illustration features that will support children as they read the book, a summary of the essential components supported by the text, a list of high frequency words and concept words, ideas for providing a supportive introduction to the book and preparing children to read the story, suggestions for observing children's reading behaviors and determining teaching points, and ideas for helping children discuss and respond to what they have read, opportunities to assess children's reading behaviors and strategies during both independent and partner reading, and suggestions for relevant content area learning. As I mentioned, there's resource support for the Spanish instruction. There's strategies and ideas for adapting the lesson plan for the Spanish text. Each lesson plan involved will encourage multiple readings and close reading of the text for practice in close reading. The lesson plans have been developed by educators to encourage literacy and critical thinking in both Spanish and English. Through our books and free online teaching resources, we hope to serve all children by helping teachers bring students diverse experiences and home stories into the classroom. So, ready to get started. I hope that you will leave here today thinking about how we have texts that capture your students and their imaginations. We have premier access to our award-winning authors and illustrators for both school visits and workshops and PD. As I mentioned with the lesson plans, we have resource exchange. Our books are available in the Teacher College Reading Assessment Kit. We have collections that are school tested and ready to go if you know exactly what you need. But if you want more personalization for your program, whether you're in Puerto Rico, Texas, New York, or California, or more, we do offer customized and personalized collections for your students and core curriculum to meet your specific school's needs. As you can see here, we offer ongoing support and collaboration, and we have a proven track record at the school and district level. LiLo Books is committed to publishing children's literature that's inclusive, meaningful, and relevant to young readers, and to supporting educators, teachers, librarians, and caregivers as they help children make connections between our books, their lives, and the outside world. We want to open this up one more time for questions about Más Piñata, dual language programs, and for Dr. Flores. I look forward to your questions. I have another question here, Barbara. You've discussed a lot about reading and writing applications. How could you use these books to improve students' speaking skills and oral development?
When you, in the first language or second language, doesn't matter. When kids see written language and you do repeated readings, we do choral reading, echo reading. The teacher models the reading, the books, and then the kids also get multiple chances to read the books to other children. That helps to facilitate their oral development, especially in the second language, because they are using it for different purposes. First, they listen to model reading from the teacher. Next, they echo it and repeat it. When I do that, the kids use the same inflection that I have used. And when they chorally read, you can listen to them and they use the same inflection. When they individually read it out loud, you hear that same inflection that you used. And so it's very, very important. Repeated readings for different purposes really facilitate that. And when the kids can see they're just not seeing words, they're seeing syntax, they're seeing the conventional reading and writing, they're seeing the conventions of written language, capital letters, spaces, periods, exclamation points. They're seeing all of it. What I like to say is that we show how all the parts, and we make visible how all the parts function in the whole. What's the whole? The whole is reading comprehension. It's enjoying, reading about things that you do, that you see, you can imagine, and you provide that diversity and they just love it, and you'll love it too. I hope that answers her question.
Yes, I think that is a great starting point, and if they want to follow up additionally, we'll definitely pass that along to share out with everyone. An additional question that we have is how much of the original Más Piñata has been carried forward in the newly released series? Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're bringing back everything in the Spanish in the original series, as well as now bringing them out into English for the first time. So that is it's going to be close to 400 books when all is said and done. And that's just one series in Bebop books overall, which are another additional several hundred books that are available at those early levels of pre-kindergarten through grade 2.
Correct. That's correct. And in some cases, we've adapted the Spanish and we've increased the complexity because we saw that we had too many, at a certain level. And so we've, not too many, but we've done that.
Yep.
So, but we've kept the original.
And Barbara, another question for you is, were the books written to dual language instruction or for a broader audience? Or both?
Initially?
Yeah.
Initially it was just for Spanish, for bilingual classrooms, for dual language. And then teachers began to ask us, why aren't they in English? And we had to wait till LiLo, promoted that as well. And so we're very happy. And it's for dual language. It's also, teachers want to use it for EL as well, for English language development. That's also important. We even have some other nations interested. China is interested in, their kids learning both Spanish and English. So that's really exciting to me. And, I see possibilities internationally for children, because children can learn 3, 4, 5 languages by the time they're 5. They just have to be engaged in them and so forth. So I'm really excited about that.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to explore this opportunity with us today. Barbara, thank you so much for sharing the stories behind the stories and being on this journey with us to bring the next generation of Más Piñata to classrooms today. If you are
and I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Jill, for organizing this, and for LiLo and all their support. Grupo Educaturas is so excited to be working together with all of you and providing this beautiful, beautiful treasure to not just kids in the United States, but all the Americas and throughout the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And, if you are interested in learning more, I really encourage you to find us online on whatever platform you use. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, WordPress, and Pinterest. We will send a follow-up email. If you need proof of professional development time for participating with this hour with us, please email me and we are happy to send you certification for the hour. Whether you are watching this live now or at a later time, please reach out. So that is all from Bebop Books and LiLo. We hope you enjoy deep diving with these resources further. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.